Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hunt Lift Eat podcast, brought to you by Hunt Lift Eat Official on Instagram. Carter and Carrie back in the host seats once again. You have power right now, Carrie. That's cool.
Do what? Oh, I have power? Yeah.
Power
For
right
now. Yeah.
For now, yep.
Stand by. Yeah. Hey, excited for this episode. Carrie, you'll have to help me out with your experience behind a rifle with your previous job, where I don't have that, but we have Luke Kenton coming on from Kenton Industries. Luke, you're the managing director of Kenton Industries, right?
Yeah. I'm a Kenton, so I'm actually the son of Mark Kenton, who started the business, like 20 years ago, and I've been fully in it now for about 6 years. My brother Greg too, he runs kind of the manufacturer side of things with the other guys. So he's doing all like the lasering and ballistics, and I kind of run the, management, sales, building these relationships with scope manufacturers. So that's kind of what I do on my side.
That's awesome, man. We're excited to talk, all things long range shooting, precision setups. And you guys are leading the way, kind of in custom BDC turrets and, ballistic strips, right? That's your bread and butter.
Yeah. It's our bread and butter. Thankfully, that's we continue to grow even today. You type in custom turret for almost any manufacturer out there online, we're going to pop up first. There's some guys, that do it themselves, most notably Leopold, of course. They started the CDS like the same time we jumped in 20 years ago or so. So there's some manufacturer, Leopold, Burris, some other guys that do it, but we do most manufacturers out there. So
nice.
And like you said, we do the strips too. So not only do we have a aluminum laser engraved turret, but we're also making decals or stickers, right? So it's for guys that either don't want to pay like the full retail price, or if they're guys that are swapping out to a lot of different loads or elevation temperature, then they got the strip option too. We actually just came out with, and I know we're jumping all over the place now, but we just came out with a PRS strip too. So, guys that like to run their own dope and mark it up on their turret, we just came out with that too. So you throw it on any scope, you go to a PRS competition and, mark your yardage right there on the spot. So
it's sick, man. When you popped on here, Luke, and I saw you for the first time. You're a lot younger than what I was picturing. I guess I was picturing your dad would be on here.
Yeah. I'm almost 30. So like I said, I'm just slowly taking over. We're really focusing this next couple of years on marketing, because we've been growing organically over the years. And like I said, thankfully we keep growing, but I really want to focus on kind of, getting on Instagram, YouTube, different podcasts like you guys, hang out and just hopefully that helps grow even more. So.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah. Well, that's the way to do it. You and I were talking a little bit. You guys have been around for a while, and now's a good time for you to start growing your social media presence and whatever that is. And we have a lot of lessons learned on the Hunt Lift Eat side of things, trying to do that. We're 5 years old or whatever. And the name of the game is just to do it organically and authentically. That's what we found is the best way to do it.
Yeah, it feels a little bit late, but like you said, it's never too late. So you just got to go for it, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on the next couple of years. So, heck that's awesome. Yeah, and the shooting world's always changing too. I mean, everybody wants the next best thing, when it comes to shooting, long range shooting for that matter. So there's always something to talk about. There's always a new scope, always a new variable that's coming out with the scope, and yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, man. I have a gazillion questions. I'm the less experienced one out of the two.
Yeah, do you want to talk turrets first or scopes? What do you guys want to jump into?
Let's talk turrets first. I need you to break it down for me like I'm in kindergarten, because my experience, I started Western hunting about 5 years ago. And here in North Georgia, I'd never shot a deer further than 120 yards, right? And the ranges that we have here are 100-yard ranges, just because that's what's practical in North Georgia. And when I started hunting out west, right, more shot opportunities started popping up at 200, 300. 300 has been my cap as far as my, personal distance, right? Because I didn't have a dialable scope. I was playing the old Kentucky windage game, right?
Yep.
And
Reticle
so
horror. Yep.
I knew my drop or whatever. So I shoot at 30-06. So I knew it 300 yards, 8.4 inches or whatever it was. And then, you guys come along and I'm like, oh, that makes way more sense. Perhaps this is something we should we should look at instead of playing the old Kentucky windage game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so what we essentially do, to put in layman terms, is convert your MOA or mill turret, right, that exists on every rifle scope, and we convert that to yardage. So you give us your variables like your caliber, your bullets, approximately where you're shooting at, elevation, temperature, and some other variables like scope height. And then what we're doing is we're running the ballistics on our program. We have our own proprietary ballistic program we've kind of perfected over the years. I mean, we'll put it up against, anything you can find online. But once we run those numbers, get your dope, we then, run a format of yardage that will be laser engraved on a new turret. So typically it's like 50-yard increments. So like you're talking about 300 yards. So if a guy's, shooting a 6.5, gives us his bullet, gives us a speed that we're going to give him, starting from 0 distance 1 in 50-yard increments, you're going to get like 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and so on. And those represent yardages instead of the MOA or mill. So like you're saying, shooting 300 yards instead of figuring out the holdover on your reticle or even the adjustment on your MOA or mill turret, you're just going to simply dial to that 3 mark representing 300 yards. And then you're ready to let it rip with that center crosshair. I mean, we encourage like MOA or mill. Like there's a lot of guys out there that's like, oh, I don't need this, I don't want this. I use my mill adjustment or MOA adjustment. We encourage that, of course, but at the end of the day, when you have a custom turret, I mean, nothing shoots faster. Even guys that know MOA or mill really well, when they range a target, you got to figure out then the dope, what you need to dial to. And it just becomes an extra step in your shooting. With the yardage turret, again, you're just range, dial to the yardage, and then let it rip. So it makes things a lot faster, especially in a stressful hunting situation.
Yeah. First time I saw it was, a ballistic turret similar to that was this past September. I was in Alaska, and we had a guy come out. One of our clients had a super high-end rifle, and he just wanted to confirm 0 out there, and he wasn't hitting where he thought he should be hitting. And I was doing something else. I just happened to walk up, and I'm like, well, dude, you got it dialed up, man. Put it to 0. If if you're shooting 200 and you 0 to 200, go to 0. And he'd be like, no, it's not how it works. I thought he was fucking with me. I'm like, no. I'm like, 0 is 0. And then based off your dope, ended up being, he actually put the target at, I want to say like 150 instead of 200. Like his range was wrong. So that's why he wasn't hitting it. But I'm like, dude, because like I said, I thought he was fucking with me. But I'm like, what an awesome idea. Because instead of having to go back, look at your dope, and like, yep, all right, 200 is, whatever, 500 is this many clicks or whatever. You just straight to 500. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes shooting faster. And at the end of the day, too, the 2 type of customers we have is, newer shooters or guys that just have a ton of money and don't have the time to shoot. They're giving us the ballistics, we're running the numbers, and then, converting it to yardage. And then on the other side, we have, again, the very well-educated shooters that have their own dope. And, the turret's essentially like a dope card on your scope. So like you're saying, I mean, it's just a lot faster to dial and let it rip.
Yeah, dude. And like you were saying too earlier, like when your adrenaline's up, man, like you don't have to think about it. It's a lot. Yeah. Just no shit,
Yeah. I mean, it makes the shooting experience in a hunt, just a lot more stress-free, and you can enjoy the hunt more. You can focus more on like your breathing control, your shot placement, on the animal. So, I mean, that's what we're here for. So, and, as far as distance goes, every scope's going to have different adjustment. And then, of course, every caliber is going to get a little more different distances, right? like your 7 PRC is going to get farther than like your 243 or whatever. So that also determines, you know, what you're shooting and what scope you're using will determine that max distance. So, but as far as, you know, your most of your distances are like 600 to 800 yards is where that turret really comes into play for those hunts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in. I'm sold. I'm going to put this on every single one of my rifles. We can just wrap this one up. Everybody needs to be jumping on this for sure.
Yeah. And you know, we do have lifelong customers that have been ordering longer than I've been working here, taking over. But you know, and then we'll get those guys that, you know, have a ton of money. They're going on their yearly hunts, right? And, you know, they come to us and, you know, July and August, get that turret ordered, you know, go out to the range and test it, make sure it's working well. And, you know, they got that peace of mind when they're going on their big hunt. You know, they don't have to worry in the back of your head, okay, what am I dialing to if the animal's at this distance, right? They're going to range, they're going to dial to that yardage and good to go. And then again, too, a lot of these scopes that are second focal plane, and we can get into that, you have to use it at a certain magnification, right, to get the proper Kentucky hold, the reticle drop. With a custom turret, too, you can use it in any magnification. So not only is the turret adjustment faster, but I mean, whether you're at 3 power or 18 power, you know, you're always using that center crosshair.
Right.
So that's also a benefit too.
And, you know, from a hunting perspective, it's way cool when you hit what you're shooting at. Like that's the best, right? It sucks missing. That peace of mind when you're pulling the trigger. Confidence is important when you're shooting, man. If I don't, you guys have probably experienced it too, but if you're ever at the range or, you know, shooting at an animal and you're like, I don't know, right? And I've been guilty of that before and still pulled the trigger. That confidence is important, man.
Yeah. We've had tons and tons of customers that, you know, will send us emails weekly like, hey, it made my hunt a lot more enjoyable. You know, before I was only shooting out to 200-300. Now with your turret, I'm shooting out to 600 comfortably, you know? So yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome, man. Well, can we dive into turrets first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can talk about turrets.
Cool. We before we press record, I gave you a disclaimer. I don't like the podcast where I just like interview and hit you.
Yeah.
But I'm real curious. So how do you guys calculate your ballistic profiles?
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, we do have our own proprietary ballistic program. You know, we're running the G1, G7, BC typically. So, you know, anyone who doesn't know the ballistic coefficient, essentially like how aerodynamic your bullet is, how it's dragging in the air. So that's a very important variable we use. Muzzle velocity is a big thing, right? So a lot of these guys that are using 24, 26-inch barrels, they will give us box speed, and most of the time they'll be more than happy with the result of the turret. But at the end of the day, we always recommend chronographing your, you know, rifle. Every rifle shoots differently, even, you know, those out of a box. So that's very important. Obviously we need your zero distance, whether you're shooting 1 or 2, which is what most guys set it up for. And then elevation temperature, you know, the higher up in elevation and temperature you are, the less adjustment you need on a scope. So this is also an important variable, right? If you make your custom turret for 2,000 feet and then you're taking it out west, you know, to like 8,000-9,000 feet, well, it's going to be off a little bit. And we need to know, you know, what's this elevation that you're approximately going to be using the turret at. And there's guys that'll get 2 different turrets, right? So they'll get one for, you know, out east and then out west, you know, 2,000 feet. And like I said, 6,000-7,000. So these are the variables that we take into account when we run the ballistics on our program.
So for an elevation point of view, presumably there's more drag on your lower elevation rather than higher elevations.
Yeah, there's less adjustments needed at higher elevation, right? Because it's the air is less dense, right? So it's traveling farther, right? And that's same with temperature. So typically at the lower elevation, you need more adjustment on your custom turret or your generic MOA or mill turret. So that's why elevation, temperature are very important variables when we're running ballistics. humidity is too, barometric pressure, but they're not as much as the elevation temperature, especially if you're shooting sub 1,000 yards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you think for a guy like Carter, who primarily hunts, East Coast whitetail, but then goes out and does a hunt every year, probably 2 different turrets, probably the easiest way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make life easy, I know it's a little bit pricier, but I mean, same with me, out here in Nashville, and I got some hunts end of the year, and I got 1 turret set for 700 feet. I'm good using that sucker. I'm gonna be in the kill zone out to 800-900 yards, from sea level up to 3,000 feet. But when I go out west, like to Arizona this year, where I'm up at 5,000-6,000, I'm either gonna have to figure out the yards to yards conversion, or that's where that second turret comes into play. And you kind of swap them out when you hit that threshold around like 4,000 feet. And then that second turret for Arizona, I mean, that sucker is going to be good from, that 4 up to like 7,000.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, that's just changing elevation. Most of these cartridges too, if you are shooting like to 300 yards, 400 yards, it's not going to be an issue, right? Because the kill zone on an animal is pretty big. And you got some other variables that you could have an air with, like shooting. Shooting is a big variable. Breathing control and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you're shooting like sub 300-400 yards, then it's not a huge difference for most of these cartridges that are screaming, 2900 FPS. Yeah. But once you start stretching it after, 400, 500, 600 yards, and yeah, you want to be pretty careful with that elevation temperature change.
Yeah, once you get past that distance, man, that kill zone gets a lot smaller.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My mule deer hunt this fall will be at somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 feet. So I think I'm going to get a turret from you guys for my rifle. I bought a new rifle to be my Western gun, and then I'll have my deer rifle for here.
Cool. So
it's a good consideration.
Yeah, let me know. We'll get you set up. What rifle and scope are you rocking for it?
About a Tikka Rough Tech in 300 Win Mag, and then I got I got a can for it. Yeah, I'm excited to shoot it. I haven't shot it yet, but
have you figured out which optic you're putting on?
Yeah, I have a Trichicon,
like AccuPoint HX. Yeah,
HX. Yeah.
Yeah, Credo HX. Yeah. Trichicon's awesome scope for sure. Very durable. Yep.
I'm in the market for a new Alaska gun. I need a 300 or bigger. So good timing for this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for a 300, so, just an example for your listeners too. I mean, if you're setting up that Trichicon with a 300, you said 300 Win Mag, right? Yeah. So I mean, that rifle with that scope, I mean, you're getting, as far as custom turret accuracy goes, out to 900 easy, in one rotation of yardage. And I guess we can segue into that too. We offer different yardage formats. So if you go to our website and you're looking to place an order, you'll see we offer what's called the speed owl format, long range hunter, and then the military format. So the speed dial format, which is real popular among our hunters, is a 1 rotation of yardage. So think of it as like your turret with 50-yard increments in 1 row. And this is the best for hunting because it's just the font's usually the biggest. It's just the easiest to read, and it's a quick adjustment. And most scopes, most cartridges, you're getting like out to 600-700 yards. So that's our first option. The long range hunters are second, and it's the same thing, but has 2 rows. So it's for guys that want to stretch it out to like 1,000 yards, or have fun at the range, for 1,000+ yards. And then the last format's our military format, and that's where you're getting not only the yardage, but also your MOA or military scale on the bottom. So it's really for like those PRS shooters, those guys that love referencing the MOA or mil scale, or if they want to do a quick adjustment, then they have that option without having to swap out the turrets, because sometimes that can be a lot of work, especially when you're out in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Easy to screw up too.
Yeah. Or lose a screw out there. I've done that before. Then you can't even put the turret back on.
Tell us a little bit about the strips, Luke.
Mhm. Yeah. So the turrets, they're typically OEM, so we're getting them directly from the manufacturer, laser engraved. We do everything in house, of course, and then we have the strips. We call them our ballistic strips, and instead it's like a laser engraved decal adhesive. So instead of swapping out the factory turret with a custom turret, you're going to be putting the strip on your factory turret. So, I mean, it works the same way. You're getting that same yardage, 50-yard increments. But again, it's great for guys that are not wanting to either pay the 120 for a turret, which, I get it all adds up. And especially if you're getting multiple turrets, it adds up. But it's for those guys, or for guys that need it for like a one-time hunt. So, if they're getting a turret, they only see they're using, one time, then instead you can get a strip you're using one time. And then you can, obviously just take it off when you get back home. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, I'm picturing it like a sight tape on a bow, right? Is that the same kind of?
Yeah, same concept. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you'll just line it up with your zero. So the strip, just like the turret, will have, 1 or 200 yard zero. So you'll just line that up on your factory turret and then just kind of take your time, wrap it around, put it on, you're ready to go. I mean, it takes no more than, 2 minutes.
Maybe I'm showing my ignorance here, but this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. This is
hey,
such a good,
we get customers telling us that every day. So, and here's a really cool thing for your listeners too. We sell scopes too. So as we continue to grow over the years, we added like manufacturers. So, I mean, we sell a lot of like Zeiss, Vortex, Leica, GPO, list goes on. But when you buy the scope from us, you get the turret for free, right? So it's kind of like a package we offer. So, we get guys that call us saying, hey, I'm overwhelmed. There's so many scope options. What should I buy? We work with their budget, of course, what they want for that build. And then we'll even, again, take the turret information, build the turret, put it on the scope, and then ship it off to you. And then we have the rings and stuff too. But yeah, I mean, we do that as well. And that's what's fun about the market I work in, is I get to touch, quite literally dozens and dozens of different scopes and see the differences and the glass quality. So that's definitely the fun part of the job.
Yeah.
What are some of your opinions on scopes?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to a rifle scope, so much has changed even just in 6 years. I mean, you get the glass quality has changed for sure, even on these cheaper Chinese scopes. The glass quality's changed, the field of view's changed. And then the biggest change that we've seen, which is directly related to our market, is the turret type and the turret adjustment, right? So, and you guys probably remember more than me, but, like 10 years ago, most scopes had dust cap covers, right? So you had to take off the cover to get access to the elevation adjustment. And that was majority of scopes. Now, in 2025, it's the opposite. Like no one wants a dust cap cover scope anymore. Everyone wants this exposed target turret, whether you're getting a custom turret from us or someone else, or if you just want like a large turret to adjust. So that's a big trend that's changed, which has helped us, because more target turrets, the more, custom turrets we can make. And then the other thing is the adjustment per turn, right? So most scopes like 10 years ago had like 12 or 15 MOA per turn, right? Now it's like 20, 25 MOA per turn because everyone wants to shoot farther, right? Like for example, a great example is like the Vortex Viper. That sucker had, off the top of my head, I believe 12 MOA per turn. They had like the PST, the HST, but their new Viper HD they just came out with like a year ago, I think, has 25 MOA per turn. So now it's more than double. So yeah, I mean, huge change for sure. And then everyone wants a zero stop as well, where it actually stops on your zero so you don't lose what distance you were at. So that's a big thing too.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That seems like a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some like aftermarket turrets too, where most notably like the old Leopolds. Like, are you guys familiar with like the old Leopold VX2, VX3s at all? They had like the coin slot on them.
Yeah, I've never owned.
They were made in the USA, and you can buy them on eBay for like 300-400. That's why they're so popular. But they just had like a coin slot adjustment. So, take off that dust cap and you're just using literally a coin to dial your elevation. So obviously today guys don't want that anymore. So we have like an aftermarket turret that converts that coin slot to like a target turret. So, I mean, we do some of those on the older scopes. Like I said, Leopold, Burris, Miopta, some other guys.
The Vortex I have on my other Tikka, my 30-06, is like that. It's freaking coin slot dial on top. So I'm going to have to get with you and get upgraded there.
Yeah. I mean, it not only is it a pain, you got to take the dust cap off, but it's hard to see the numbers too when you're dialing. And as a disclaimer, I mean, there's some guys that do like the dust cap for their hunting situation, just because it keeps everything lighter, more compact. So if you're pulling off your back or something, it's not the turret's not in the way so much. But most guys, I should say, want that larger target turret now.
Yeah.
I think the old style, wasn't it more where guys were doing holdovers instead of dialing? Is that the reason for that? Yeah, because I mean, that's
a lot of like BDC reticles. So you had your basic crosshairs with dots. Nikon was really known for this. And while those are great, they're not going to be fully accurate, right? Because that drop is for like a specific bullet, but it doesn't take into account like your scope height, your elevation and temperature, which we talked about. So, there are a lot of guys that would use it, but they weren't really accurate in many cases. Because it doesn't take in all the variables.
Well, there's also that human element to it too, right? You're doing a holdover, because that's like I said, that's how I learned was using those holdovers. I'm not like a sniper or anything like that, but I got to play with some cool stuff. But yeah, because I mean, especially like the horse and all that stuff that we used to have, trying to hold over on that, man, it's still 100%. Human error can play into that as well.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, because a lot of these like first focal plane scopes, they have what we call like the Christmas tree reticle. You ever see those? It's just like a ton of marks, And I personally don't like using them. I mean, if you got all the time in the world, you're at the range, it's great, it's fun, and like I said, we encourage you learning MOA or mill. But like when you're sitting in there and you're trying to count and squint with your eyes, and looking down the scale, both the elevation and the windage, I mean, it gets pretty nutty, and that's where your kind of eye relief changes, and you might even get lost in counting, and you kind of have to like blink your eye and reset, and that's where that crazy Christmas tree, a lot of guys just don't like it, especially in a hunting situation. That's where they want just a basic crosshair and custom turret, make things easier, and you get to see your target a bit better, right? When you don't have all this crazy hash marks in your scope. But there's definitely a market for that. A lot of big PRS shooters and long range shooters, they love those reticles. So
now, Luke, could you kind of break down real quick the difference between first focal plane and second focal plane, and then additionally tell me, what is your take for like your average, well, let's say it's a Western hunting rifle setup. What's your take on which?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it gets really overwhelming for guys looking for new scopes. I know I hear it from customers all the time, because there's so many different variables you got to worry about, weight, illumination, and on top of it, you got 24 manufacturers to purchase from, right? So it gets really overwhelming. But one of the variables that's important is whether you want to go with a first or a second focal plane scope. Now, here's the big difference. The first focal plane scope has typically like that Christmas tree style reticle, and those marks, as you're looking at them, they're going to represent your MOA or mill. That scale is always going to be the same regardless of which magnification you're on. So whether I'm looking at my scope at 3 power or crank it up to 15, that little 3 mark on the hash, representing 3 MOA, let's say, is always going to have that same value. So that's what first focal plane is. The second focal plane scope is Usually in the market, they're not as crazy as a reticle. And this is why, because that crosshair reference, whether you have that same 3 MOA dot, can only be used at a certain magnification. And it's usually like a higher magnification. In the hunting world, the second focal plane is a little more desirable. Again, this is not like a set rule, but is what most guys want because that crosshair stays the same size. So the first focal plane scope, when you zoom way out, those lines get so fine that you really can't see it in a hunting situation, especially if it's like a dawn or dusk shooting.
Yeah.
But the second focal plane, you always can. Again, I mean, this is not like a set rule, but it's kind of a generalized theme we see in the market. But that's the big difference between the two.
What do you shoot?
I have both. I mean, I have both. So, I mean, the first focal plane, most of my bench rifles. I was playing around yesterday with the guys here at work, like a little Ruger Precision 22, and it's first focal plane, and I'm having fun with the drop, subsonic out to 300 yards. But for when it comes to hunting, I like most of my scopes second focal plane for the reason I talked about. It's just easier to see that crosshair when you're at that lower high magnification.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And last thing too is usually the illumination on these first focal plane scopes. The illumination is usually like the whole Christmas tree will light up. So the illumination is a lot more complex versus the second focal plane is usually like a dot illumination. And that's what guys really like, that single dot.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
That's what I prefer. Less shit in your scope.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's some popular hunting first focal plane scopes. Like I said, it's not like a rule you have to follow. Like a popular one's like a Knife Force NX8. I think I actually have one. Yeah, right over here. But that NX8, first focal plane, kind of a little bit crazier crosshair, but it's a real popular hunting scope. So
yeah.
What what features when it comes down to like buying a scope for a rifle setup, since it sounds like you guys help people with that when they're like, hey, I don't know which route to go. What features should hunters prioritize when they're buying a scope? Because it can be overwhelming, like you said, with whoever's calling you, because there's a gazillion different types and brands and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely gets overwhelming. Yeah, I mean, first I think would be magnification, right? Do you want a 2.5 to 15, or do you want, a 5 to 25, right? And if you are a type of hunter that's only shooting, 1 to 300-400 yards, and there's really no reason to get that 5 to 25 or 6 to 24, right? That's where that 2.5 to 15 or the 3 to 15 comes into play. And what's nice about those too is you have a really large field of view, right? Because when you're hunting, a lot of times you need quick target acquisition, right? You have to quickly find your target in the crosshair, and it's going to be a lot harder on a 6-power scope when they're only 150 yards away than it is on a 3-power scope. So I think magnification is probably the most important to start with. The next variable is going to be like that first, second focal plane we talked about. If you are doing, a hunting and you're a newer shooter, I would probably lean more towards a second focal plane scope. But again, I mean, it's not a set rule. Illumination's another thing too. Not every scope has illumination, but if you do want a scope for hunting, then look for like that basic dot illumination. That'll help out with like that dawn and dusk hunts. Weight's a big factor too. We'll get guys that call us and they have a Tika T3X, and those suckers are light, 6-7 pounds or whatever, and then they got like a Vortex Strike Eagle 5 to 25, which is a 34 millimeter tube. So it's just a heavy scope for something that's a lightweight rifle, so weight's a factor too. If you're looking for like something that's lightweight, there's scopes out there, that are 18 to 28 ounces. And then if you're doing bench shooting, then those scopes are going to typically be heavier, from 28 to, 38, 40 ounces. So that's another factor. I personally like my scopes real lightweight. So that's where, kind of that 23, 28 ounces comes into play. Turret type, obviously, and that's where we come in. If you want a turret that's kind of larger, easier to read for your eyes, or do you want something that's smaller, dust cap, where it's not going to get in the way when you're hunting? So that's another factor, but I think those are, the top variables.
Yeah, those are all really good things to consider when you're going that route. What's the brand? I feel like it's relatively new. Arkin or something like
Yeah,
that.
Arkin.
Their turrets are huge. They're
Yeah.
gigantic, but I feel like I can read it really well.
Yeah. Arkin, they popped up to the scene like 3-4 years ago. And dude, it's crazy how much they've grown. Some guys either love them or hate them.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of scope for the price is the best way to put it.
The price is great, for sure.
Yeah. And they are big scopes, like you're saying. The turrets, they're one of the biggest turrets that we deal with.
Yeah.
But for guys that have bad eyes or want something that's large, easy to read, then that's where they come into play. But yeah, they called their EP5, and that's probably their most popular scope. And that sucker's 34 millimeter tube, biggest turret we've dealt with. I mean, I'm guessing it's like 38 ounces or something. I mean, it's a big scope. I wouldn't put it on a Tika T3X. That's all.
Right. Now, do you either as Luke or as Luke Kenton, the managing director at Kenton Industries, do you have scope brands or models that you recommend to folks, like that you think are like just consistent, solid, good?
Yeah. I mean, how we operate is, if a scope manufacturer wants to work with us, we're going to work with them. There's definitely, some that we would recommend over others. If you go to our rifle scope page on our website, you'll see the guys that we currently sell. We're going to be adding Night Force soon. Thankfully, they're letting us start selling their scopes just because we have such a good relationship with them. But yeah, I mean, $1,000 scope, probably our go-to right now is going to be like a Zeiss V4. Steiner's got some good stuff. The Predator 4s. We do a lot for Vortex. We've built a great relationship with them. You call them up right now. Hey, I want a turret for my Strike Eagle. They're going to send you to us. Venom, whatever model. But yeah, I mean, Leica, we do a lot with Leica. Leica's got a great scope if you're looking for like a $1,600 scope. With good glass, when a lower magnification, at 2.5 to 15 power comes into play, for sure. But yeah, there's, like you said, there's just so many different manufacturers out there. It gets overwhelming. So I would just stick with those variables, stick with what's in your budget too. The one thing what I always tell guys is you should be spending just as much on the scope as your rifle, if not more. I know a lot of guys don't like to hear that, but it's true. If you want to be accurate past like 200-300 yards, you want consistency, you want nice glass, I'd say spend just as much on the rifle, if not more, on the scope. We'll get guys that call us and have, a fierce, firearms rifle that costs them, $3,200 or whatever. And they're putting on, like a Vortex Crossfire $200 scope. And I mean, it may work for you, but it makes us cringe a little bit, but there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, man. I mean, because it's a package deal. I've had that cheap, Crossfire type, lower end scope on a rifle, and there's such a huge difference, man. Like, I know dawn and dusk, just depending on like where the sun was, like sometimes you're not going to be able to see your reticles, So, yeah, I know you're right. I had not like a super high end, but a decent rifle and a piece of shit scope, and I was useless.
Yeah. Yeah, I think your price range when you start hitting, good scopes, is probably, starting in the $800, $600 price range, somewhere around there. I mean, unless you're putting on some kid's rifle or, you got a low budget for this build, I wouldn't go anything less than that if you want consistency and longevity out of your package there, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of the mistakes that you see guys make when they're trying to stretch their shots without dialing?
Without dialing, well, a lot of guys don't test their speed.
Yeah.
A lot of guys don't test their muzzle velocity. That's probably the biggest thing. We'll get guys that place an order, and whether they're planning on using a custom turret and the reticle, they don't test their muzzle velocity. Thankfully, we get a ton of orders, but we can't check in with everyone. So when we get an order that comes in and it says, I chronograph my rifle at 2910 FPS, the guy calls us a month later after he's got the turret and he shot it, and we run the ballistics, it all looks right. And then we come to find out, oh, wait, I have a, 20 inch barrel and I actually didn't chronograph it. So reality is he's probably coming out, 150 FPS slower. And he's wondering why, he was short when he shot at the elk or whatever. So velocity, I think, would be number one. Invest in a chronograph, especially if you plan on getting a lot of different rifles. Invest in a chronograph. We're actually going to start selling chronographs from Athlon, so we're excited about that. But if you want a true custom turret that's accurate, or if you want to know your dope with dialing your knob like you're saying right there, or your reticle, I mean, you got to know your velocity.
Yeah. I wouldn't have thought that would be as of the utmost importance as it is.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if you are having most manufacturers, when they give the box speed, it's coming out of like a 24, 26 inch most of the time. So if you do have, we talked earlier, if you do have like a 24-inch rifle, then you're probably going to be fine using the box speed if you're using it for hunting purposes. But if you want true accuracy out to 1,000 yards, down to the nail, then you got to get your speed tested.
Yeah. Is that a service that you guys offer? Like if I drove up and saw you guys, could we do it all in person?
Yeah, we don't so we're working on an FFL right now. Since we moved here from California, we're down here in Nashville now, like I said, but we're working on our FFL, so we'll officially like be selling rifles and stuff. But yeah, we do have a range here. So if you do come and you're here with your rifle, then, we set up guys with scopes and get it sighted in with them. Make sure it's dialed in, check your speed.
All right. I will be there July. Let me check my calendar. July 6th. I'll be there. I want to hang out with you.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll hit the range and we'll stretch rifles out. What are you going to bring? Your new one?
I'm going to bring my new one, and I'm going to bring my 30-06, and we'll do it all at once.
Yeah, we'll put the scopes on if you haven't already. We'll go to, there's a range here called Strategic Edge. It's like one of the biggest range. It was part of one of the reasons why we chose to move out here. It's like a range that has 1,250 yards, real nice range. So we'll go there. We'll sight it in and have fun stretching it out.
Heck yeah.
That'd be fun. Yeah. I got to put that on my calendar then, July 6th.
Yeah, I mean, I get back from Canada. Yeah, we could do this right now. Who cares? I've got a week before I leave for my next trip in July. I'll get with you and we'll get it figured out.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do it.
It'd be awesome. I'm more of a hands-on kind of guy.
Yeah. I might have to pop down there with you before I move.
Where are you going?
Texas.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just came back from we got a bunch of dealers there in Texas. So, I grew up doing a lot of like, elk and deer hunting, but I never did hog hunting. And ever since we moved out to Nashville, we got tons of dealers out there. They're always, every time I talk to them, they're always like, "Oh yeah, come on down, I'll take you out." And wow, I'm addicted.
Yeah.
I'm addicted. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of hog hunting in Texas and Georgia. So that's my new thing right now.
Yeah. I like it. Speaking of hunting, man, you talked about some good hunts coming up. What are you doing? What do you got planned?
Yeah, some more hog hunts. I got actually in 2 weeks, I'm going out west Tennessee with Josh at Tennessee Predator Hunters. So I'm going to go out with him, do some coyote hunting for a couple days. I didn't draw the tag for the elk, but my dad and his best friend got it in Arizona. So I'm going to fly out and hang out with them.
Heck yeah.
And then I got some deer hunts lined up here locally in November. So we got a customer we're really close with. He's ordered tons of turrets from us, but he's got a ton of land north of Nashville. So I'm gonna go out and hang out with him and get a hunt there going.
Man, too bad we didn't do this last year. I could have try
Yeah,
to tag along.
Yeah. We gotta do some. Like I said, I'm addicted to hog hunting. So if you guys ever want to do that, I'm serious. We'll do it.
Yeah, I
usually take a crew down to Florida. We have a good relationship with Triple M Outfitters. I'll share their page with you. Man, we just freaking stack them up. It's such a good time.
Yeah, it's fun.
We actually we got another one, El Cazador in Texas. It's a big friend of HLE.
Yeah,
that too.
What's fun too is, being in the long range business. So the guy that we go out with too, it's Lloyd from Genesis Rifles. If you've ever heard of him, he's down towards the south of Dallas. But when we go hog hunting with him, we do bolt action rifles. So we're trying to see how far we can shoot them, out to like 300 yards with thermal, and that's when it really gets fun because they don't know what's going on,
Yeah.
So yeah, we usually been doing that with him once a year since we've moved here. So
yeah.
Yep. What do you guys got going this year?
Well, I'll be guiding in Alaska. I got 2 hunts up there. Black bear, brown bear, and moose I'll be guiding for. And then I do a veterans hunt every December, and then I'll be guiding for that. So no planned hunts for me, but a lot of planned guided trips.
Cool. Yeah. You have to take me on a bear hunt someday. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, dude, I'll definitely link in with my outfitter, man, and we'll get you up there with us. But yeah, other than that, man, I'm going to be trying to figure out how to hunt Texas whitetail on my new property out there. And hopefully I'm under contract right now. So hopefully everything works out. The property I just put an offer on out in South Texas.
Okay. You'll have hogs there too. You can have fun with.
I don't know, man, because I'm up in the hills. It's all rocks and cedar trees. So I don't know. I didn't see hogs when I walked it.
Okay. Huh? Yeah.
Put out some cameras, see what you got going on.
Yeah. That's what I need to
do. I'm waiting on the Wyoming draw to drop in about a week or two. Hopefully, I'll be drawing a Wyoming mule deer tag heading out there in October. We will see.
That's cool. Yeah. This is a fun time of year in the business because a lot of guys that are calling us, they're real excited because they, got their tag drawn. So they're all, talking up a storm with us. And, that's when they get the turret and they're all pumped up. So it's definitely a fun time of year.
Yeah. I bet it's like, I bet you guys are doing a flurry right now. Carrie used to work in an archery shop. Is it like in August where everybody's like, oh shit, archery season's almost here. I better, it's time to get everything fixed.
Yeah. And then a lot of guys just postpone it. Right. And they're, getting ready for their hunt in 3 weeks. And they're like, having a checklist and they're like, oh yeah, I want a custom turret, make this easier. And that's when they call us and, they want the turret yesterday. So yeah.
What is the turnaround on some of your orders? Obviously it's not next day delivery, but
well, we do have that option, believe it or not. But usually our orders are like 2-3 weeks. But we do have that option where if you want to pay like overnight shipping, we're going to stop everything, focus on you and get you done. Yeah. Wow. We get like a next day order, like every day, every other day. So
good customer service.
Yeah. Hey, if you're going to, some guys, get some surprise hunts or they got like a competition shoot and they need it. And, we understand that. So
that's cool.
So do you guys offer ballistic turrets because I was looking on the different brands you guys had on there. So like I've got a Khalees that I would love to put a ballistic turret on.
Yeah.
Like, how would that work?
So that's a high end scope. Nice. Is it like the 3-18 or the K525? Do you know which model?
I don't remember the model. So 318. It's actually in my box over here.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So when it comes to them, we don't have blank turrets. It's actually a really complex turret system. So that's part of it. And I think the turret system, if we were to buy it from them, is like $200-$300. And anybody can buy it from them. for themselves. And I know there's some guys that have been doing that and they run the dope themselves. But yeah, we don't do turrets for those guys, but we do tons of the strips I was talking about.
Yeah.
And the strips are high quality. I mean, I know those are expensive scopes, nice scopes, but once you like wrap the strip around, you won't even tell there's a sticker on there. So that's what we can get set up for you guys. I'll email you later, and then you just email me back what you're using for it, and I'll get you one over.
Cool. Yeah. That'd be awesome. Yeah, because it was a gift, and I love that rifle so much. But in the scope that came on it, like I always tell people, I could probably sell this and buy a nice car.
I was gonna, hey, that was, like I said, those are nice scopes. So yeah, hold on to that sucker.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it was a gift, and it's definitely high end, but I want to make it like be as good with it as I possibly can be. You know what I mean? And it's killed quite a few critters already.
Yeah, those have a ton of adjustment per turn, that we're talking earlier about, 12 MOA versus 25. Those are like 30 MOA or plus. So what caliber do you have? Is it
6.5?
6.5 Creedmoor? Okay. Yeah. I mean, we would literally take your strip till you got subsonic. That's how far those have adjustments. Yeah. So you'd have fun out to like 12, 13, 1400 yards with it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, the scope is definitely harder than I am for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Luke, one thing I love that your company does is you guys share pictures of your customers, like successful hunts on Instagram. I love that you guys do that. Any memorable ones, kind of off the top of your head? There was a pretty cool moose that you guys posted recently, and I think maybe a mule deer.
Yeah. We have a whole testimonial page on our website. I think we got like 20 or 30 guys. And then, thankfully a lot of guys post us on Instagram, Facebook, and some YouTube videos as well. But yeah, I mean, going along with kind of growing marketing, we're posting some of these testimonials that we hear on Instagram. But yeah, I think my favorite type of testimonial is guys that call and say like, hey, my hunting trip was so easy for my wife and my kid. They're able to get their, deer at 400 yards easy. And we hear that quite literally on a weekly basis. So that's like probably our favorite review. We'll get another one too is again, guys that aren't confident in shooting past 200-300 yards, but they get our custom turret. They go to the range, they try it out, make sure it works, and then they're on their big moose hunt, right? And they got the moose out there at 500-600 yards, and they either can't get closer or they don't want to risk it. And that's where just trust in dialing the turret because all the variables are correct. Focus on your breathing control. Dial to the magnification you want to be at, right? Because that's what you can do with the custom turret. And then, let it rip, put some trust in the turret. So those are the other reviews we like hearing, guys that are confident shooting past the 200-300 yards.
Yeah. What a great testimonial too, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And there's some cool ones too. If you go to our website, we got to update, put some more on with all these emails we get, but there's guys that are shooting like baboons out in Africa and stuff. Yeah. So, some exotic hunts for sure.
Any military applications?
Yeah, a lot of guys that are doing like competition shoots. We have some guys that have used them going overseas, believe it or not. A lot of guys that use them for like training. And then those type of guys that, military type shooters, they want always that military format, what we talked about earlier. So they're getting that yardage, but also the scale on the bottom because, most of these guys obviously know how to dial mils or MOA. So that's where that military format comes into play. But yeah, a lot of guys say they use it for training, domestically or overseas. And we've done some small like contracts here and there with some big companies like Trigicon and stuff where we're producing, a small 200-300 custom turret batch, for some builds for some of these guys. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, jumping back kind of to the beginning, was it your dad who started the company?
Yeah. So my dad, I guess the story is he was at a gun range in California, and there was I think a coyote or bobcat at this gun range that was like 1,000 yards. And, all these guys, again, have these older scopes, these coin slot adjustment, and they're all trying to figure out, how much adjustment they need to hit this coyote they probably shouldn't have been shooting at. But, they're all lobbing in shots. And, back then, there's some like custom turret applications for guys in the military. And, obviously that kind of Kentucky holdover, the BDC drop, like that was a thing, of course. But no one really had in the market, at least the civilian market, custom yardage turrets. So my dad, I guess the story was, he was thinking there's got to be an easier way to quickly dial and shoot for this coyote or bobcat or whatever it was. So, that's where he started it. He was already into long range shooting. Is it getting really dark in here because of clouds coming down?
A little bit, but you're good.
Yeah. Let me turn on the light real quick.
All right.
I feel like I'm like crazy dark. Yeah, here comes those clouds I was telling you about with those rainstorms. But anyway, yeah. So he basically he was already into long range shooting, so he had all these scopes and stuff. So he just bought a laser machine back then. Back then they're like $20,000-$30,000. Big investment to just go for it. He has a police background too. He's a sheriff out in LA. So it was a part-time job in the beginning, and I was like 15 years old when he started and stuff. So he was running out of the garage. He'd get maybe like one order every week or 2 weeks. And then he started to bother some of these scope manufacturers like Nikon, I think was the first company that said, yeah, we'll give you a try. And then we kind of just grew exponentially. We got Nikon, Zeiss, Leica, and then it just kind of domino effect after that. And then, again, there were some manufacturers that said, oh no, this is a good idea, we're going to do it ourselves. Like Leopold and Huskamaw. You guys know Huskamaw, of course. So yeah, they started like the same time, and they decided we'll build our own scopes with the turret. And then some other guys started doing it as well. But yeah, and then it started to continue to grew, point where he actually retired a little bit early as a cop. And I went to college and I said, yeah, I want to help, really build this business. I desired it. I thought it was awesome. Obviously I love shooting, of course, with all the hunting growing up and stuff. So, we got a shop out in California, got some employees, and then, wanted to get out of California, and taxes and be able to afford life a little bit. So moved out here to Nashville, like I said, about 4 years ago, and he's kind of stepped out of it now. He's kind of taking care of his mom, and likes more of the kind of the night vision thermal side of shooting. So that's what he's doing, and I'm just kind of running it now with my brother, and we got some employees now that work for us. So yeah,
it's a good story.
It's crazy how fast it flew by. And we're, we've run promos throughout the years with a lot of these manufacturers. We're still running promos with a lot of them. We just finished one with Trigicon, buy a scope, get a free turret from Kenton. We're running one with Zero Tech, GPO. We just finished one with Leica. So again, it's you building these relationships with a lot of these manufacturers over the years has been really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're suckers for entrepreneurs who started in garages, man. That's
what happened. One machine by himself. So
hell yeah, dude. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get up there with you. We'll make that happen. I'm gonna put your turrets on all of my rifles, and anybody who is willing to listen to me, I'm sold. So we'll get up there, man. But
yeah,
we're rolling up on an hour here, Luke. Is there anything else that you want to tackle? Anything coming down the pipeline for Kenton Industries? Or
that hour flew by for sure. Yeah, I mean, if you guys like, we're still family business. We love talking scopes. So if any of your listeners like really overwhelmed with the scope option or wants to get into long range shooting, give us a call, shoot us an email. You'll either talk to me or some of the other four guys here, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have and get you set up with a scope. You know, whether again your budget's $200 or $4,000, we got some options here, and we'll get you going with that free custom turret. Growing marketing side of things. So check out our Instagram, and we're posting videos on YouTube on a weekly basis now. But yeah, other than that, we'll see how it goes.
Hey, are we bringing back the Kenton podcast?
Yes, we are. We did. I don't know if you've been seeing our reviews on scopes.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that. We've been busy doing those. I think we got another like 5 lined up.
Nice.
So we took a break on the podcast, but yeah, we actually wanted to get better gear for it, better equipment. Yeah. So we finally got it now. And so we got to get back on the podcast. So yeah, I think we got like 4 episodes on those, but we'll have more to talk about for sure. And we want to bring some guys on too. So
awesome, man. Well, we got some
yeah
folks with some military background who might be worthwhile talking to. So
yeah, heck yeah. No, I love it. Heck yeah.
Awesome, dude. Kerry, you got any closing thoughts for us, man?
No, man, this is cool. I can't wait to get my sight tape for my Khalees.
Heck yeah, we'll get it going for you guys. I'll email you guys all the ballistics we need and then send it over, and I guess I'll see Carter on the 6th.
Yeah, buddy.
Maybe me. I might be able to shoot down there.
Yeah, you should.
Cool, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, we
we'll
appreciate
go hit some bars in Nashville too.
Kerry's too old for that.
Yep. Way too old.
I might be too old.
Yeah, I don't like the crowds. There's so many out-of-staters there. It's definitely stressful going downtown. It's not like it was when we first moved here, 4 years ago. So
yeah, I'm 32, but I'm a dad now, so I'm in bed by 9 o'clock, cool. 9:30.
Yeah.
I'm older.
Yeah. Appreciate your time, Luke.
Yeah.
Looking forward to Hunt Lift Eats relationship with Kenton Industries and talking to you guys more, and hopefully spreading the good word, and hopefully listeners go check out y'all's Instagram page and check out your website. And it's cool they can call you guys and get a human being on the phone. That's a big deal these days.
Yep. Call us up. We'll answer.
Heck yeah. Awesome, dude. We appreciate it. Listeners, as always, we appreciate the hell out of you guys, and we'll talk to you next week.